Welcome to Succes Verzekerd, a video podcast by Vanbreda Risk Benefits, in which we talk to insurance experts about new risks and continuity challenges for businesses. Today, my guest is Dirk Maes, and he's an expert in maritime insurance. Welcome, Dirk. Let's start with a specific example. Can you give us a practical example of a maritime insurance?
Marine insurance broadly covers just about anything that is related to transport of passengers by ocean vessels and of cargo by all means of conveyance, road, rail, air and ocean shipments. If we, for instance, look at the bread we daily eat, there's been marine insurance involved at many stages. The grain was purchased from a foreign company who grew the grain. It was carried to the port of shipment into a truck or a railway car. It was loaded into the vessel. The vessel had to sail to the port of destination. Cargo was unloaded, stored in a port warehouse, awaiting delivery to final destination. So all those actors who intervene in that logistical supply chain have to be covered and insured in order to get us our daily sandwich in time.
Yeah, and what makes marine insurance so different from traditional insurances, like the insurance for my house or for my car?
Marine insurance is dynamic and international by nature. It's based on a multitude of underlying contracts, often based on foreign law systems or on international conventions. And interestingly, marine insurance is the oldest type of insurance. It goes back to the era of the Phoenicians who were trading in the Mediterranean area around 1000 to 1200 before Christ, and who organized a set of law rules to organize solidarity between the cargo and the vessel that was considered to enter into a joint marine adventure in case something went wrong. So the principle is about 3 millennia old, but it's still applied today, every day. You will definitely recall the Ever Given, the vessel that blocked the Suez Canal a couple of years ago, thereby paralyzing logistics all over the world. The canal was blocked for 10 days. And the bill for that claim was amounted to around $600 million. It had to be split equally between the vessels and the cargo. You can imagine that this is a lengthy and complex process that takes many years to settle. And if you don't have marine insurance, you will need to sign an average bond, put up an average guarantee before you can get your cargo or your container released from the shipping company.
And who is the most important target group for you?
Everyone who is engaged in international trade and the world of transport needs to assess what kind of level of risk they want to incur, both physical risks as contractual and financial risks.
Yeah, and what are the most important issues that keep maritime customers awake at night?
Companies who are engaged in transport and international trade are concerned about their operational trade flows and their continuity as a company. Obviously, the higher the stakes, the larger the concerns. Most clients are particularly concerned about situations where various interests may be threatened at the same time. Think about natural catastrophes like an earthquake, an explosion in a port like we had in Tianjin in 2015 with thousands of buildings, cars and property damaged. A terrorist or a warlike attack like we currently see in Russia and in the Gaza Strip. A cyber attack like the one that Maersk had in 2017, paralyzing logistics for 10 days all over the world, and a 300 million bill as a consequence. All those kind of catastrophes where various interests concur and large amounts are at stake obviously concern our clients the most.
Yeah, and how can maritime insurance relieve those worries from your customers?
A marine insurance broker goes far beyond than just providing an insurance solution. We sit with the client to analyze his trade flow. We discuss the likelihood of frequency and of severity of potential claims. We discuss the options that are at his availability to mitigate or to prevent risks. And it's only at that stage that we discuss the level of insurance protection that we would advise the client to buy, followed by a market exercise to put into place a policy. And throughout the lifespan of a policy, various situations occur that have a modification or an increase of the insurance protection as a consequence. Yeah. If a claim occurs, then the insurance company arranges for the claim survey, salvage process in order to recover sound cargo, discussion with counterparties as to assess the level of liability. At all those stages, marine insurance brokers sit at the side of their clients to navigate between the various pitfalls that a client can encounter, both on a level of physical risks, then in respect of contractual and financial arrangements with counterparties.
I've been told that Belgium has a remarkable position within the marine insurance market, mainly thanks to the port of Antwerp, Bruges. How does this global ranking influence the dynamics on the Belgian market?
Actually, the Belgian marine insurers have always been very active on the international scene. Indeed, in the backstream of the success of the port of Antwerp, Bruges, the insurance industry developed very early and developed their own set of conditions and a whole apparatus of experienced lawyers, surveyors, marine insurance agents, brokers, and also courts who are very familiar with the concepts of marine insurance. We have people who speak several foreign languages, and we have excellent universities to train our future staff. We have world-leading companies like DEME and Euronav in the field of renewable energy and sustainable shipping. Nowadays, the Belgian marine insurance market is still, despite we're a small country, the 12th largest in the world. All actors in the market have a worldwide network of representatives to assist their clients in solving local claims and complying with local insurance obligations.
There is a very strong emphasis these days on environmentally friendly solutions, such as hydrogen, for instance. Are ships being equipped with hydrogen as well?
Yes, indeed. Marine ocean transport will gradually start to look very different. Already now there are various other fuels than fossil fuels coming into play. LNG is one of them, but also methanol and hydrogen is currently being developed and introduced into the fleets. Also in this area, Belgium is playing a frontrunner role in the sense that we have our first tug on hydrogen entering the fleet in the port of Antwerp. We have a mobile tank station, and companies like CMB Tech currently are developing a demonstration production plant of ammonia in the deserts of Namibia, produced with 100% renewable energy, in order to serve as a source for eco-friendly propulsion fuels for the marine shipping industry. IMO, the International Maritime Organization, part of the United Nations, developed a set of rules in 2021 in order to reduce the greenhouse emissions by 2050. As a consequence of that, the vessels had to comply with new regulations saying that the fuel had to have lower sulfur content, lower than 0.5%.
And how is the industry adapting to these changes and requirements?
Well, these are all developments that marine insurance needs to incorporate into their actuarial models. Marine hull insurers on a worldwide level have agreed to assess the level of emission of the fleets of their clients and have agreed to disclose the global footprint of the vessels in their portfolio. Each insurer has a view on the risks attached to this new technology and will adjust its set of conditions and premium accordingly.
The EU has the ambition to be carbon neutral by 2050. How does this affect marine insurance coverage?
Sustainable shipping is one of the main focus points for the marine insurance industry. On a cargo level, the appetite for insurers to insure fossil fuels such as oil and particularly coal has reduced significantly. New sustainability regulations in the EU aiming for a net zero greenhouse gas emission by 2050 have led to new regulations such as, amongst others, the CBAM regulation, whereby importers of goods into the EU will be taxed to compensate for emission-heavy imports in order to compensate and to avoid unfair competition with producing companies within the EU that need to comply with stricter environmental regulations. Importers of certain products, such as cocoa, for instance, will need to demonstrate that the goods they are importing have not been sourced from land that has been deforested or turned into land for agricultural purposes before 2021. The marine insurance industry will need to contribute to achieving those ambitious targets by ensuring compliance with the regulations and provide visibility and transparency into the new taxation that is based on the distance that the product has traveled. At the same time, innovative technologies bring along new types of risks, such as, for instance, the risks of electrical batteries in cars. Transport of cars has always been quite difficult in the sense that a ro-ro car vessel is like a giant car park with no compartmentalization and the cars being parked very close to each other. The introduction of electrical batteries has further aggravated that risk in the sense that it takes much longer and much more effort to extinguish a fire that is occurring into a battery of a car, much more than any other parts of the car. Some insurers have withdrawn from that risk. Others have seen an opportunity and tried to develop a specific set of conditions, premium and prevention measures in order to manage and control that type of new risks.
Inland shipping is getting increasingly popular. How does this affect marine insurance?
A lot is happening in inland shipping, where there, particularly in Belgium, used to be a lot of family-owned companies with the captain at the steering wheel being at the same time the owner of the company. This is gradually changing and more professionally run companies entering the market. There's a lot of investment in the industry in order to move towards a modal shift towards inland shipping, and a lot of subsidies to invest in more eco-friendly propulsion systems. All the vessels are being replaced with newer and better quality vessels, which has a positive influence on the loss statistics for that type of business that are improving. We now see inland vessels coming into the fleet equipped with electrical battery power packs and hybrid propulsion systems. Semi-autonomous shipping, where ships are being steered by a captain in a remote control room with a joystick, is also an important development for the industry. Also in that area, Belgium is playing a leading role. We have a control room in the center of Antwerp where various vessels are being equipped. From an insurance point of view, there are challenges in order to adjust international conventions and legal frameworks to accommodate for that type of control of the vessel, and the marine insurance industry is adapting to this trend that in the long run will contribute to a more sustainable shipping environment.
How is marine insurance affected by the very unstable political situation in some parts of the world, for instance in Ukraine or in Gaza?
In both cases, we see that geopolitical conflicts lead to international trade being targeted as a weapon in those conflicts. When the war broke out in Ukraine almost 2 years ago, several vessels got blocked with cargo being loaded, awaiting to be shipped out. The vessels were blocked. Only vessels carrying foodstuffs for humanitarian purposes were allowed to go out of the port, thanks to the grain corridor agreement. War insurers immediately cancelled the cover to renegotiate reinstatement of the cover, obviously at a much higher premium. After the war breakout in Gaza, Houthi rebels in Yemen have hijacked an Israeli vessel. After that, many commercial vessels entering into the Red Sea have been attacked with drones, and the threat of the Houthi rebels was recently extended to all vessels heading towards Israel. As a consequence of that, most shipping companies have decided not to use the Suez Canal any longer for the time being, and have rerouted their vessels around Africa just to avoid the Suez Canal. So the impact for the industry is very considerable. Economic trade sanctions, as a consequence of the geopolitical conflicts, also have a very meaningful impact on the industry of marine insurance, in the sense that all contractual counterparties need to be screened. Insurance companies, brokers, and all actors involved had to set up a structured screening process. Trade flows have been disrupted. Yeah. Some multinational companies had assets in Russia or Ukraine. All this, some of it had to be sold. So the impact was very meaningful.
Marine insurance seems very diverse for me. What are the elements determining the cost for marine insurance?
This is also an area that is very different for marine insurance than for other insurance sectors, in the sense that if you insure a car or a house, insurers can rely on data sets of millions of pieces of information, whereas this is far more difficult in marine insurance because of the fact that there are so many different risk factors that come into play. You work on a global level, and both physical and contractual risks can be very different. If we look at the cargo insurance, premium is based on a multitude of factors. Obviously, the nature of the cargo can be very different. Theft risk is very different for an iPhone than for a big bag of 1,000 kilos of soybeans, for instance. You have the method of packing, the quality of the contractual counterparties, and of the logistic partners handling the cargo. As an example, the industry has seen multi-million-dollar claims as a consequence of cargo being bought on the basis of a remote warehouse receipt, only to find out many months later that, for instance, the personnel of the warehouse operator who has stored the cargo has derouted several tons of cargo, or to find out that the cargo actually has never been into the warehouse or existed only on paper. Insurance companies love to rely on technical rating engines based on multi-million data fields. And in this sense, marine insurance is quite different, in the sense that insurers need to allow their underwriters a certain degree of freedom in order to properly evaluate the risk factors that cannot be properly taken into account into a technical rating engine. Accordingly, it is of great importance for a client to be assisted with a specialist marine insurance consultant in order to properly assess the risks and explain them to the insurance company in the sense that they do not merely have to rely on the result rolling out of a computer.
Mm-hmm. And how do you keep the costs as low as possible?
Companies can reduce their total cost of risk by acting on various levels. They can reduce both physical and financial risks by streamlining their logistic process throughout the entire chain. Mm-hmm. The industry is also gradually adopting more sophisticated tracking and tracing platforms where cargo can be monitored throughout the transport, and early alarms can be generated in case of temperature problems or cargo being derouted from the intended transport route. All efforts that improve the logistical quality of the operation will end up in more favorable insurance premiums.
And how does Vanbreda adapt to the diverse needs of all those customers worldwide?
As market leaders, we have clients throughout the world in all marine lines. We have buying power with insurance companies and a team with very diverse backgrounds, ranging from captains who have sailed vessels to freight forwarders or people who have worked for a terminal operator, maritime lawyers, or people who have worked in the insurance industry for their entire career. We have a global scope, we travel and we act swiftly, thanks to the fact that 80% of all collaborators works out of the Antwerp headquarters. We have a worldwide network. Vanbreda is one of the founding partners of the worldwide Lockton network. And apart from that, we also have the liberty to work with specialist partners in function of the area that is involved or of the product and the specific expertise that is required.
And final question, how do you see the future of marine insurance?
International trade will continue to evolve constantly, as well as the complex legal and financial environment. Clients will more than ever benefit from specialist marine insurance consultancy in order to better evaluate their risks and try to prevent or mitigate them. As a consequence of the ever-growing complexity, we see a consolidation trend in the industry, with smaller companies gradually being taken over by companies with a larger market share. On the other hand, we see new initiatives, often backed by pension funds or external capital providers, entering into the market with fresh ideas and new dynamics. So whilst it's quite unclear how precisely the future will look like, one thing that we know is for sure is that life in marine insurance will never be dull.
Thank you, Dirk. But I'd like to end our talk with some short questions that require a short and a sharp answer. Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
So my first short question is there still a lot of piracy in the maritime world?
Piracy seems like a phenomenon of ages and centuries ago, but it's still omnipresent. 10 years ago, we had a big surge of piracy cases with vessels being held in Somalia or in the Gulf of Guinea, and also recently vessels have been hijacked in order to ask for ransom to release the crew.
Unbelievable, right?
Indeed.
What are the biggest risks for your target group, according to you?
The larger the stakes, the higher the concerns. All risks that can possibly result in an accumulation of risk, for instance, natural catastrophes, hijackings, cyber attacks, etc., cause concern to our clients.
What is the overall level of insurance premium generated by marine insurance in Belgium or worldwide?
In Belgium, in 2022, the marine insurance industry generated a premium income of around 520 million euro. And on a worldwide level, this amounts to approximately $36 billion.
Finally, Dirk, I'm very curious to know what transport companies are referring to when they speak of an act of God.
In principle, all transport companies have a liability towards the cargo during the period that the cargo is within their custody and care. One exception, when they do not have to assume responsibility if something goes wrong, is an act of God, force majeure, circumstances that they could not have avoided, or when they have made no mistake or error whatsoever, they can exonerate themselves from their liability. And that is the reason why so many clients buy cargo insurance.
Thank you very much, Dirk, for your insights and for your expertise. And thank you for watching and thank you for listening. We end this video podcast with a few words from Pedro Matthijsens, the CEO of Vanbreda Risk Benefits, and he's very happy to share his insights on this topic.
Hello, Pedro. As usual, I am curious to hear your take on the subject and today, more specifically, your take on maritime insurances. Let's get started. How do maritime insurances contribute to society according to you?
Marine insurance is at the origin of insurance in general. My colleague Dirk Maes talked about the Phoenicians thousands of years ago. I have a more recent story that really explains how important marine insurance is for society in general. End of the 17th century, there was a small coffee shop close to the River Thames in London that was owned by Edward Lloyd. And England was a seafaring nation, and a lot of captains and ship owners came together to drink coffee. And they started betting on all sorts of things in the pub, in the coffee shop, until there was this brilliant idea that a ship owner or a captain could bet against the return of their own ship. So what they did is they put, let's say, £1,000 on the table, and they said, if my ship does not return from India or China, I lose the £1,000. It's lost. If my ship doesn't return, I get refunded with the money of all the bets so that I can buy a new ship and I can recruit a new crew. And that was the origin of commercial insurance. And commercial insurance is everywhere today, where people who own companies, people who do trade, try to help each other in case of accidents or risks that are becoming real. And it helps a lot to share risks in trade and in business activities. So marine insurance is really at the root, at the origin of commercial insurance.
Okay, thank you. Very insightful. What are the key takeaways for you from this podcast episode?
The key takeaway for me is that there is a special place in marine heaven for Antwerp. That Antwerp, in Antwerp we have a tradition. We are the 12th marketplace for marine insurance. We have large ship owners like Euronav, CMB, Exmar. We have academic education of legal practitioners, lawyers in maritime sciences. We have a special school for captains. And this is something we really have to cherish in Antwerp.
Okay. Did this podcast episode taught you anything new about maritime insurances? And if so, what was it?
Absolutely. And it's all about the risk of electric cars and transportation of electric cars on ships.
Yeah, a new phenomenon.
Yeah, the batteries. And what I understood is once you get a fire on a boat that is on a ship that is loaded with cars, electric cars, it is a disaster. And so for traditional insurance, this is a real threat. for innovative insurers, this is a new opportunity to think about the risk and how they really can contain the risk of transportation of electric cars.
Okay, thank you. How do you see maritime insurances evolving in the future?
It's all about green shipping and alternative energy. What you see is that there's a lot of investment going into the new fuel for green shipping, like hydrogen and ammonia. How do we produce hydrogen? How do we produce ammonia? How do we transport it? How do we build engines for ships that can use these new fuels? But also alternative energy like offshore wind parks are requiring a lot of new concepts in shipping, like transportation of crews to windmills, transportation of windmill parts, transportation of spare parts. That's a whole new world that is being created.
An important one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you maybe tell me something more about the digital innovation WAPA?
Yes. WAPA happened literally by accident. We insured a ship for one of our clients some time ago, and one day we got the horrible news that the crew of this ship was kidnapped by pirates close to the African coast. We went through a very, very difficult period. We had to talk with the insurer to get enough money together to pay a ransom to the kidnappers. We had to mobilize a team to send to the African country where the crew was imprisoned. We did all this. We got the people free. We paid the ransom. So it ended well.
It sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. Yeah. It ended well, but we said never again. This is never again going to happen, because we were not even aware of the fact that the ship was in dangerous waters. So what we then decided to do is we partnered with a split-off of Delft University, and we built WAPA. WAPA stands for War Additional Premium Application. We built a system that can track and trace all ships that are insured by us as a broker. So we have a digital map of the oceans, and we can see each insured ship on the map, and we calculate the course of the ship, and we can predict when the ship is going to enter dangerous zones, dangerous waters. And when we see that coming, we know it, but we also can talk with the ship owner, we can talk with the insurer, so that additional prevention measures and additional insurance coverage is taken in advance of a potential accident happening.
Okay, that's very clear to me now. It's like a GPS system, but for...
It's ways for ships.
Ways for ships. Yeah. Okay. Pedro, I would like to thank you for sharing your insights, and I'm looking forward to talk about the next episodes of Succes Verzekerd.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.